The year was 2645, and humanity had spread its wings far beyond the confines of Earth. The galaxy was vast, filled with wonders and dangers alike. Planets teemed with alien life forms, some friendly, others hostile, but all watching as humanity carved out its place among the stars. Earth remained the heart of human civilization, a bustling hub of politics, trade, and technology. Yet beneath the surface of progress lay simmering tensions. Resources were scarce, disputes over territory grew louder, and alliances between species were fragile at best. It started with silence. A remote outpost on the edge of known space, named Delta 9, stopped transmitting signals. At first, no one paid much attention. Outposts like Delta 9 were often isolated, their crews small and stretched thin. But when days turned into weeks without contact, concern began to ripple through command centers across the galaxy. Admiral Elena Voss sat in her office aboard the flagship Eclipse, staring at a blinking red dot on the holographic map before her. Delta 9 wasn't just any outpost. It guarded a critical supply route connecting Earth to several key colonies. Its loss could not be ignored. When rescue teams finally arrived, they found nothing. No bodies, no wreckage. Just an eerie void where the station once stood. The only clue left behind was a faint energy signature detected by scanners, something unlike anything seen before. It pulsed with incredible power, yet vanished almost instantly. Scientists back on Earth analyzed the data for weeks, piecing together fragments of what might have happened. Their conclusions sent shockwaves through the military. Delta 9 had been destroyed by a weapon capable of obliterating entire fleets in seconds. A railgun. Railguns were not new to humanity. They had been used in warfare for centuries, firing projectiles at incredible speeds using electromagnetic forces. But this was different. This weapon operated on principles so advanced that even the brightest minds struggled to comprehend them. Quantum-enhanced projectiles traveling at near light speed? Shields rendered useless? Armor reduced to dust? It sounded like science fiction, but the evidence suggested otherwise. Admiral Voss leaned back in her chair, rubbing her temples. She had spent decades serving humanity, rising through the ranks until she commanded one of the largest fleets in existence. But this was something else entirely. Whoever or whatever had attacked Delta 9 possessed technology far beyond anything humanity currently wielded. And if such a weapon fell into the wrong hands, the consequences would be catastrophic. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock on the door. "Enter," she called out, straightening up as the hatch slid open. Captain Zara Quinn stepped inside, her uniform crisp and her expression serious. Zara was young for her rank, barely in her 30s, but she carried herself with quiet confidence. She commanded the Aegis Dawn, humanity's most ambitious project to date, an experimental battleship designed around the very same railgun technology now haunting their nightmares. "Admiral," Zara greeted, snapping a quick salute. "You wanted to see me?" Voss gestured for her to sit. "Yes, Captain. I've reviewed your reports on the Aegis Dawn. Impressive work so far." Zara nodded, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of unease. "Thank you, ma'am. But we're still months away from full deployment. The systems are complex, and integrating them safely has proven challenging." "I'm aware," Voss replied. "But time is a luxury we don't have. Delta 9 changes everything. We need to accelerate testing. If this weapon falls into enemy hands, they'll crush us." Zara finished, her voice steady despite the weight of the words. "I understand, Admiral. My team will do everything possible to meet the deadline." Voss studied her for a moment. "Good, because there's more." She tapped a button on her desk, and a hologram materialized between them. It showed a sleek, menacing silhouette, the design blueprint for the Aegis Dawn. We've received intelligence suggesting that the attack on Delta 9 may not have been random. There's chatter among alien factions about a potential alliance against us. Zara frowned. Against humanity? Why now? That's what we need to find out. Some believe the railgun tech originated with aliens, that they're testing it on us. Others think it's internal sabotage. Either way, we can't afford to wait and see. You'll lead the Aegis Dawn fleet as both a deterrent and an investigative force. Your mission: track down whoever is responsible and neutralize the threat. The gravity of the order settled over Zara like a heavy cloak. Leading the fleet meant taking responsibility for countless lives and potentially making decisions that could spark interstellar war. Still, she didn't hesitate. Understood, Admiral. We won't fail. As Zara left the room, Voss turned back to the hologram. Her gaze lingered on the image of the Aegis Dawn. It represented hope, a chance to level the playing field against unknown adversaries. But it also carried risks. Railgun technology was unpredictable, its destructive potential unmatched. Deploying it prematurely could provoke retaliation. Yet doing nothing was equally dangerous. Meanwhile, deep within the bowels of a research facility orbiting Mars, Dr. Marcus Hawley stared at rows of equations scrawled across his workstation. He had dedicated his life to studying railgun mechanics, pushing the boundaries of physics to create weapons capable of reshaping warfare. Decades ago, he had theorized the possibility of combining ancient projectile designs with quantum engineering. Back then, it had seemed like a pipe dream. Now, staring at the evidence recovered from Delta 9, he realized his theories had become reality. Marcus sighed, running a hand through his graying hair. He felt a pang of guilt gnawing at him. When he first proposed the idea of railgun battleships, he imagined them as tools of peace deterrence strong enough to prevent conflict altogether. Instead, they had become instruments of destruction, wielded by forces he couldn't control. What if his work had inadvertently paved the way for humanity's downfall? His musings were cut short by the arrival of a junior scientist, clutching a datapad. Dr. Hawley, we finished analyzing the energy signatures from Delta 9. They match your original calculations almost perfectly. Marcus took the datapad, scanning the results. His stomach churned. The implications were clear. Someone had taken his designs and built upon them, creating a weapon far deadlier than he ever envisioned. Who and why? These questions haunted him as he prepared to join the crew of the Aegis Dawn, for better or worse. His expertise would be crucial in understanding and countering the threat. Back on Earth, public opinion swayed wildly. News outlets buzzed with speculation about the attack on Delta 9. Some blamed rogue elements within humanity, accusing separatist movements of staging the incident to justify militarization. Others pointed fingers at alien superpowers, claiming they sought to weaken humanity's position in the galaxy. Diplomatic channels buzzed with accusations and counter-accusations, each side denying involvement while quietly bolstering defenses. Amidst the chaos, one thing became clear. Humanity stood on the brink of war. The galactic balance of power, already precarious, threatened to collapse under the weight of mistrust and fear. Railgun battleships loomed large in everyone's minds, not just as symbols of strength, but as harbingers of devastation. For Admiral Voss, Captain Quinn, and Dr. Hawley, the road ahead was fraught with uncertainty. They knew that whatever awaited them in the depths of space, it would test their resolve, their ingenuity, and their humanity itself. The question was simple yet profound. Could they rise to the challenge, or would the galaxy descend into chaos? And so, preparations began. Fleets mobilized, weapons calibrated. Minds raced to anticipate every possible scenario. Humanity braced itself for what might come next, a confrontation unlike any other in its history. The discovery of the railgun technology that destroyed Delta 9 sent shockwaves through the galaxy. News of its existence spread quickly, and soon every faction, human and alien alike, was scrambling to understand its implications. For humanity, it was both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, the Aegis Dawn fleet represented their best chance at survival. On the other, the mere mention of railguns ignited fear and suspicion among alien superpowers. Admiral Elena Voss watched as the situation unfolded from her command center aboard the Eclipse. Reports poured in daily, each more alarming than the last. Alien factions were arming themselves faster than ever before, stockpiling resources and fortifying their borders. The insectoid Zetherians, known for their ruthless efficiency in battle, had begun massing fleets near contested territories. Their motives were unclear, but their actions spoke volumes. They were preparing for war. Meanwhile, Captain Zara Quinn worked tirelessly aboard the Aegis Dawn, overseeing final preparations for deployment. Her crew moved with precision, testing systems, running simulations, and ensuring every component of the battleship was ready for combat. The railgun itself was the centerpiece of the ship, a massive cannon mounted along the spine of the vessel. It hummed with latent energy, waiting to unleash devastation on an unprecedented scale. But despite the progress, doubts lingered. The railgun's power came at a cost. Each shot required enormous amounts of energy, draining reserves that could leave the ship vulnerable if not managed carefully. Precision was also critical. Even a slight miscalculation could send a projectile spiraling off course, potentially causing collateral damage on a galactic scale. These limitations weighed heavily on Zara as she paced the bridge, her mind racing with scenarios. Dr. Marcus Halley joined the crew shortly after leaving Mars, bringing his expertise directly to the heart of the operation. His presence was both reassuring and unsettling. He spent hours poring over schematics, tweaking algorithms, and consulting with engineers to optimize the weapon's performance. Yet beneath his calm exterior, he harbored a growing sense of dread. Every test firing reminded him of the destructive potential he had unleashed upon the galaxy. What if his work became the catalyst for widespread destruction? What if humanity's enemies turned this weapon against them? Tensions escalated further when intercepted communications revealed troubling details about the Zetherian buildup. Intelligence suggested they were amassing near a region rich in rare minerals, a resource vital for advanced weaponry. Admiral Voss convened an emergency meeting with her top advisors, including Zara and Marcus, to discuss the implications. "We can't let them gain control of those resources," Voss stated firmly, pointing to a holographic map displaying the contested area. "If they succeed, they'll have the means to replicate railgun tech or worse." Zara nodded. "Agreed, but we're still weeks away from full operational readiness. Engaging them now would be risky." Marcus chimed in, his voice tinged with caution. "And what happens if we provoke them prematurely? They might see it as an act of aggression and rally others to their side." Voss leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "Then, we make sure our first move isn't seen as provocation, it's seen as deterrence. We need to show them we're prepared to defend ourselves without backing down." The decision was made. The Aegis Dawn would patrol the contested region, serving as both a warning and a show of force. If the Zetherians crossed the line, humanity would respond decisively. Zara relayed the orders to her crew, who sprang into action with renewed urgency. Supplies were loaded, shields reinforced, and weapons primed for immediate use. As the fleet departed Earth's orbit, a palpable sense of anticipation hung in the air. Days passed uneventfully as the Aegis Dawn cruised through the void, scanning for signs of activity. Then, during a routine sweep, sensors picked up something unusual, a cluster of ships moving stealthily through an asteroid field. Zara ordered the fleet to hold position while she analyzed the data, It didn't take long to identify them. Zetherian scouts. "Captain," one of the officers reported. "They're hailing us." Zara hesitated. Diplomacy was always tricky, especially with the Zetherians. Known for their hive mind mentality, they rarely engaged in direct communication unless necessary. Still, ignoring the hail wasn't an option. "Patch them through," she instructed. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a grotesque visage, a towering insectoid figure with multifaceted eyes glinting ominously. Its mandibles clicked rhythmically as it spoke in halting, synthesized tones. "You trespass in sacred space," it declared. "Leave now or face consequences." Zara stood firm, her expression unwavering. "This is neutral territory. We have every right to be here. Stand down, or we will consider your actions hostile." The creature tilted its head, as if processing her words. Then, without warning, the transmission cut off. Moments later, the scout ships began advancing toward the fleet. "Ray shields," Zara commanded, her voice steady despite the rising tension. "Prepare for evasive maneuvers." The bridge erupted into organized chaos as officers scrambled to carry out her orders. Weapon systems hummed to life, targeting solutions calculated in real time. The Zetherians closed the distance rapidly, their movements erratic yet precise. Just as it seemed a clash was inevitable, Zara made a bold decision. "Fire a warning shot," she ordered. "Target the nearest asteroid." Her crew exchanged uneasy glances. A warning shot with the railgun wasn't like firing a conventional weapon. Even a single projectile could level entire structures, or in this case, obliterate an asteroid the size of a small moon. "Are you sure, Captain?" asked the weapons officer hesitantly. "Do it," Zara replied, her tone leaving no room for argument. With a deafening roar, the railgun discharged. The projectile streaked across space at relativistic speeds, striking the designated asteroid with unimaginable force. In an instant, the massive rock disintegrated into a cloud of debris, sending shockwaves rippling outward. The resulting explosion illuminated the void, casting eerie shadows across the fleet. For a moment, there was silence. Then, slowly, the Zetherian ships began retreating, their formations breaking apart as they fled deeper into the asteroid field. Zara exhaled sharply, realizing the magnitude of what had just happened. The railgun had proven its worth, but at what cost? News of the incident traveled fast. Within hours, reports reached alien factions across the galaxy. Some condemned humanity's actions as reckless escalation. Others expressed cautious admiration for the display of technological prowess. Diplomatic channels buzzed with speculation, accusations, and thinly veiled threats. The fragile peace that had held for decades teetered on the brink of collapse. Back aboard the Aegis Dawn, reactions were mixed. Many of the crew celebrated this successful demonstration, seeing it as proof that humanity could stand toe-to-toe with any adversary. Others, however, shared Zara's unease. The railgun was a double-edged sword, capable of inspiring awe and instilling terror in equal measure. By wielding it so brazenly, had they inadvertently provoked the very conflict they sought to prevent? Dr. Marcus Hawley wrestled with these questions as he reviewed the data from the test firing. The numbers confirmed what he already suspected. The railgun's destructive potential surpassed even his wildest predictions. Yet the ethical implications gnawed at him. How many lives had been saved by deterring the Zetherians? And how many might be lost if others followed suit, replicating the technology for their own purposes? While the crew debated the fallout of the incident, Admiral Voss faced mounting pressure from Earth's leadership. Public opinion was divided, with some hailing the Aegis Dawn as humanity's savior and others calling for restraint. Political rivals seized the opportunity to criticize her handling of the situation, accusing her of recklessness and warmongering. Behind closed doors, she weathered the storm with stoic determination, knowing that the stakes were too high to second-guess her decisions now. Yet amidst the chaos, whispers of betrayal began to surface. Captain Zara Quinn discovered encrypted messages between high-ranking officials suggesting that the initial attack on Delta 9 may have been orchestrated by rogue elements within humanity itself. Was this a ploy to unite fractured nations under a single banner? Or something far more sinister? As the days stretched into weeks, the Aegis Dawn continued its patrols, maintaining a tenuous balance between deterrence and diplomacy. The Railgun loomed large in everyone's minds, a symbol of humanity's ingenuity and its capacity for destruction. For Zara, Marcus, and Admiral Voss, the road ahead remained uncertain. They had demonstrated their strength, but at what price? And how long could they keep the galaxy's fragile peace intact before it shattered completely? Through it all, one truth became clear. The age of railgun battleships had arrived, reshaping the galactic landscape in ways no one could have anticipated. Whether humanity emerged stronger or succumbed to the chaos depended on choices yet to be made and sacrifices yet to be endured. The aftermath of the railgun demonstration rippled across the galaxy like a shockwave. Humanity's show of force had silenced some critics but inflamed others. Alien factions, once divided by mistrust and rivalry, began to unite under a shared banner of fear and resentment. The Zetherians, humiliated by their retreat, rallied allies from distant systems, spreading tales of humanity's aggression. Meanwhile, diplomatic envoys scrambled to contain the fallout. Their efforts hampered by conflicting reports and rising tensions, Captain Zara Quinn stood on the bridge of the Aegis Dawn, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. The weight of her decision hung heavy on her shoulders. Firing that warning shot had been necessary. At least, she told herself it was. But now, as whispers of war grew louder, she couldn't shake the feeling that she had played right into someone else's hands. Who benefited from this chaos? And why did it feel like humanity was being pushed toward conflict? Dr. Marcus Halle sat in the ship's lab, surrounded by holographic projections of energy readings and weapon schematics. He had spent hours analyzing the railgun's performance during the test firing, marveling at its raw power. Yet with each calculation, his unease deepened. The railgun wasn't just a tool, it was a statement. A declaration that humanity would no longer tolerate threats. But statements like that often came with consequences. Admiral Elena Voss, meanwhile, faced mounting pressure back on Earth. Political leaders argued over the wisdom of deploying the Aegis Dawn so aggressively. Some praised her decisiveness. Others accused her of playing into the hands of warmongers. Public opinion remained split, with protests erupting in major cities. Peace activists demanded restraint, while militarists called for preemptive strikes against potential enemies. Amidst the turmoil, an unexpected visitor arrived aboard the Eclipse, an ambassador from the aquatic Kalari, a reclusive species known for their neutrality. The creature floated in a tank of nutrient-rich water, its translucent body shimmering faintly as it spoke through a translator device. Its voice was calm, but carried an undercurrent of urgency. "Admiral Voss," the ambassador began, "we bring troubling news. Intelligence suggests that the railgun technology used to destroy Delta 9 originated not from aliens, but from humans." Voss frowned, leaning forward in her chair. "Explain." The Kalari ambassador hesitated before continuing. "There is a human colony, long presumed lost, operating beyond the edge of explored space. They call themselves the Outlanders. Decades ago, they vanished after rejecting Earth's governance. Since then, they have developed advanced technologies in secret, including railguns." The revelation struck Voss like a thunderclap. If true, it meant humanity itself bore responsibility for the weapon threatening the galaxy's stability. But why would the Outlanders attack their own kind? And how had they managed to remain hidden for so long? She relayed the information to Captain Quinn and Dr. Hawley aboard the Aegis Dawn. Both listened intently, their expressions grim. For Marcus, the news hit particularly hard. Could his theories have inspired the Outlanders' work? Had his research inadvertently paved the way for betrayal? "We need answers," Zara said finally, breaking the silence. "If the Outlanders are behind this, we can't afford to leave them unchecked. But if this is misinformation—" She trailed off, unwilling to finish the thought. Marcus nodded slowly. "Misinformation or not, it changes nothing. We still need to find the source of these attacks. Whether it's the Outlanders or someone else entirely, we can't let them control this technology." With renewed purpose, the Aegis Dawn set course for uncharted space, following leads provided by the Kalari. The journey was long and fraught with danger. Navigation charts were incomplete, and the region teemed with hazards, rogue asteroids, gravitational anomalies, and pockets of radiation left behind by ancient supernova. Yet the crew pressed on, driven by the knowledge that failure was not an option. As they ventured deeper into the unknown, strange signals began to appear on their scanners. At first, they seemed random bursts of static interspersed with faint rhythmic pulses. But as the pattern became clearer, Marcus recognized something familiar. Quantum signatures matching those detected at Delta 9. "They're here," he murmured, pointing to the data streaming across his console. "Somewhere close." Zara ordered the fleet to slow its approach, deploying probes to gather more information. What they discovered chilled them to the core, a massive structure floating amidst the debris of a shattered planet. It resembled a fortress, its surface bristling with weapons turrets and shield generators. Energy readings confirmed the presence of Railgun systems far more advanced than anything aboard the Aegis Dawn. "This has to be it," Zara said, her voice tight with anticipation. The origin of the attacks. Before they could act, however, the structure activated. Defensive systems came online, targeting the fleet with precision. Warning klaxons blared as shields flared under the assault. Zara barked orders, her crew responding with practiced efficiency. Weapons fired, countermeasures deployed, and evasive maneuvers executed, all while the railguns on the enemy station remained ominously silent. Then, without warning, the station ceased fire. A transmission crackled through the comm system, distorted but intelligible. "You should not have come here," a voice declared, cold and mechanical. "Turn back or face annihilation." Zara exchanged a glance with Marcus, who looked pale but resolute. "We didn't travel all this way to run away," she replied firmly. "Who are you?" There was a pause, followed by a low chuckle. "We are what remains of humanity's forgotten children. The Outlanders." The admission sent a ripple of shock through the bridge. Marcus clenched his fists, his mind racing. If the Outlanders truly existed, and if they were responsible for the railgun attacks, then everything they thought they knew about the conflict was wrong. "You attacked your own people," Zara accused, her tone sharp with anger. "Why?" "Our reasons are ours alone," the voice responded. "Suffice it to say, Earth abandoned us, left us to die. Now, we will ensure no one suffers as we did. But attacking innocent colonies won't solve anything." Marcus interjected, unable to stay silent. "This isn't justice, it's vengeance." The line went dead, leaving only static. Moments later, the station unleashed its full might. Railguns roared to life, firing projectiles that tore through space with devastating speed. The Aegis Dawn barely escaped destruction, its shields buckling under the onslaught. Other ships in the fleet weren't so lucky. Several exploded in brilliant flashes of light, their crews lost forever. Zara gritted her teeth, issuing rapid-fire commands. "All hands, prepare for emergency withdrawal. Divert all power to engines and rear shields." As the fleet limped away, battered but intact, the crew struggled to process what had happened. The Outlanders were real, and they hated humanity with a burning passion. Their motivations were unclear, but their capabilities were undeniable. If they decided to strike again, there might be no stopping them. Back aboard the Aegis Dawn, Marcus retreated to his quarters, haunted by guilt. He replayed the conversation in his mind, searching for answers. Had his work truly inspired the Outlanders' hatred? Or was this tragedy inevitable, born of centuries of neglect and abandonment? Zara found him sitting in the dim glow of his workstation, staring blankly at a wall of equations. "We'll stop them," she said softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Whatever it takes." He nodded, though doubt lingered in his eyes. "I hope you're right, Captain. Because if we don't, this could tear humanity apart." Days passed as the fleet regrouped, repairing damage and mourning their losses. Admiral Voss delivered a sobering address to her officers, emphasizing the stakes of their mission. "The Outlanders represent a threat unlike any we've faced before," she stated. "But they also remind us of our failures. To defeat them, we must understand them and ourselves." Preparations resumed with renewed determination. Weapons were recalibrated, strategies refined, and alliances strengthened. Humanity couldn't afford another mistake, not when the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Yet even as they prepared for the battles to come, questions lingered. Were the Outlanders truly the architects of the Railgun attacks? Or was this part of a larger scheme designed to fracture alliances and sow discord? One thing was certain: the road ahead would be fraught with peril, and the choices they made would shape the future of humanity forever. The galaxy braced itself for war. News of the Outlanders' existence spread like wildfire, igniting fear and outrage among humanity's leaders. Earth's government convened emergency sessions, debating how to respond to the threat posed by their estranged kin. Meanwhile, alien factions watched with bated breath, unsure whether to intervene or let humanity destroy itself from within. The fragile balance of power teetered on the edge of collapse. Admiral Elena Voss stood at the center of the storm, her resolve unshaken despite the chaos swirling around her. She knew that hesitation would only embolden the Outlanders. If they struck again, and there was no reason to believe they wouldn't, they could cripple humanity's defenses and shatter any hope of unity. But striking back carried its own risks. Attacking the Outlanders' stronghold might provoke a full-scale war, one that could engulf the entire galaxy in flames. "We can't wait for them to make the next move," Voss declared during a strategy meeting aboard the Eclipse. "We strike first hard and fast. Hit their supply lines, disrupt their operations, and force them to fight on our terms." Her advisors exchanged uneasy glances. Some nodded in agreement, while others voiced concerns about the morality of such an approach. Yet none dared challenge her authority. Voss had earned her rank through decades of service, and her instincts had rarely been wrong. Still, she understood the weight of the decision before her. This wasn't just another battle. It was a gamble with the future of humanity hanging in the balance. Captain Zara Quinn received the orders shortly after the meeting concluded. Her expression hardened as she read the transmission, each word etched with urgency. The mission was clear: lead the Aegis Dawn fleet deep into enemy territory, targeting key strategic locations to weaken the Outlanders' grip on the region. It was a desperate plan, born of necessity rather than choice. Success meant crippling their ability to wage war. Failure meant annihilation. Dr. Marcus Haile joined Zara on the bridge as preparations for the assault began. His presence was both a comfort and a reminder of the stakes involved. He had spent countless hours poring over data collected during their encounter with the Outlanders, searching for weaknesses in their defenses. What he found troubled him deeply. The Outlanders' technology was not only advanced but active. capable of learning and countering threats almost instantaneously. Defeating them would require more than brute force. It would demand ingenuity and sacrifice. As the fleet departed for the designated coordinates, tension gripped every member of the crew. Conversations were hushed, movements deliberate. Each person aboard the Aegis Dawn understood the gravity of what lay ahead. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy. For some, it was a burden too heavy to bear. Others drew strength from the knowledge that failure was not an option. The journey into enemy territory was perilous. Navigation charts became unreliable, distorted by gravitational anomalies and energy fields surrounding the Outlander's domain. Sensor readings flickered, making it difficult to pinpoint targets without risking detection. Zara ordered the fleet to maintain radio silence, relying on prearranged signals to coordinate movements. Every second felt like an eternity. The oppressive silence broken only by the fight, only by the pilot. Then a second felt like an eternity. The oppressive silence broken only by the hum of engines and the occasional beep of instruments. When they finally reached their destination, a sprawling network of refineries and supply depots hidden within an asteroid. The scene was eerily quiet. No patrols guarded the perimeter. No alarms sounded as the fleet slipped into position. It was almost too easy, raising suspicions among the officers. Yet time was not on their side. With shields raised and weapons primed, the Aegis Dawn unleashed its payload, launching precision strikes against key installations. Explosions lit up the void, brilliant flashes of light illuminating the jagged surfaces of nearby asteroids. Railgun projectiles tore through reinforced structures, reducing them to rubble in seconds. Defensive turrets activated belatedly, firing wildly in an attempt to repel the invaders. But the fleet had anticipated this response, weaving through the debris field with practiced skill. Shields flared under the barrage, holding firm despite the relentless assault. For a brief moment, victory seemed within reach. Then, without warning, reinforcements arrived. Dozens of ships emerged from hyperspace, their sleek designs unmistakably Outlander. They moved with terrifying efficiency, forming formations that maximized firepower while minimizing exposure. The tide of battle shifted instantly, forcing the fleet to retreat deeper into the asteroid field. Zara clenched her fists as reports poured in from across the fleet. Ships were lost, crews sacrificed in the blink of an eye. Yet, even as despair threatened to overwhelm her, she refused to yield. "Hold the line," she commanded, her voice cutting through the din of chaos. "Focus fire on their command vessels." The order sparked a renewed sense of determination among the crew. Weapon systems recalibrated, targeting solutions adjusted in real time. The railgun aboard the Aegis Dawn roared to life once more, unleashing a devastating salvo that crippled several enemy ships. Explosions rippled outward, creating shockwaves that destabilized the surrounding asteroids. Debris spiraled chaotically, forcing both sides to adapt quickly or face destruction. Amidst the carnage, Dr. Marcus Hawley monitored the situation from the lab, analyzing patterns in the Outlanders' tactics. Their adaptability was remarkable, almost unnervingly so. Each time the fleet adjusted its strategy, the Outlanders countered with precision timing. It was as if they anticipated every move, staying one step ahead at all times. Something or someone was guiding them, feeding them intelligence in real time. They're being directed remotely, Marcus realized suddenly, his eyes widening as he pieced together fragments of intercepted transmissions. There's a central hub controlling their fleet. If we can locate it. Zara didn't hesitate. "Send me the coordinates," she ordered, already plotting a new course. The fleet regrouped, pushing forward despite mounting casualties. Every shot fired, every maneuver executed, brought them closer to their objective. Shields faltered, hulls groaned under stress. But still they pressed on, driven by sheer willpower. Finally, they found it a massive vessel orbiting a distant moon, its surface covered in antennas and relay dishes. Energy readings confirmed it was the source of the Outlanders' coordination, a nerve center directing their entire operation. Destroying it would sever their chain of command, leaving their forces disorganized and vulnerable. Target locked, the weapons officer announced, his voice trembling with exhaustion. Ready to fire on your mark, Captain. Zara took a deep breath, steadying herself. The cost of this mission had been too high, but turning back now would render all their sacrifices meaningless. Fire, she said simply. The railgun discharged, sending a projectile streaking toward the command ship. Time seemed to slow as it closed the distance, trailing a faint contrail of ionized particles. Then, with a blinding flash, the vessel erupted into a fireball, its destruction sending shockwaves rippling outward. The Outlanders' fleet hesitated, their formations breaking apart as confusion spread. Seizing the opportunity, the Aegis Dawn led a final push, driving the remaining enemy ships back toward their stronghold. Retreating into the safety of hyperspace, the fleet emerged battered but victorious. Casualties were heavy, resources depleted, but the mission had succeeded. The Outlanders' grip on the region was weakened, their morale shattered. Back aboard the Aegis Dawn, the crew allowed themselves a moment of respite, though joy was tempered by grief. Friends and comrades had fallen, their sacrifices etched into memory forever. Zara stood on the bridge, staring out at the stars, her thoughts drifting to those they had left behind. Victory had come at a terrible price, but it had also bought humanity precious time. Marcus approached her quietly, his expression somber yet hopeful. "We've slowed them down," he said softly. "But this isn't over." "No," Zara agreed, her voice steady despite the weariness in her eyes. "It's far from over. But we'll keep fighting for Earth, for humanity, and for everyone who depends on us." As the fleet limped homeward, carrying tales of heroism and loss, the galaxy held its breath. The Outlanders had been dealt a blow, but their hatred burned brighter than ever. And somewhere, lurking in the shadows, unseen forces continued to manipulate events, steering humanity toward an uncertain fate. The war was far from won, but the resolve of those who fought it burned fiercely, a beacon of hope in the darkness. The victory over the Outlanders' command hub was bittersweet. Humanity had struck a significant blow, but the cost was staggering. Ships were lost, lives sacrificed, and resources stretched to their limits. The Aegis Dawn limped back toward Earth, its hull scarred from battle, its crew weary but resolute. Yet even as they returned, questions lingered. Who or what was truly behind the Outlanders' aggression? And why had humanity's enemies united so quickly after the attack? Admiral Elena Voss stared at the holographic display in her office aboard the Eclipse. It showed a map of the galaxy, dotted with markers indicating recent skirmishes and alliances. Alien factions that had once been rivals now stood shoulder to shoulder against humanity. Something wasn't right. The speed and coordination of their response suggested more than mere opportunism. Someone or something was pulling strings, orchestrating events from behind the scenes. Captain Zara Quinn shared Voss's suspicions. She sat in her quarters aboard the Aegis Dawn, reviewing intercepted communications and intelligence reports. Patterns began to emerge, subtle connections between alien leaders. Encrypted messages passed through neutral channels, and references to a shadowy figure known only as the Architect. Whoever this person was, they wielded immense influence, manipulating both human and alien factions for reasons unknown. Dr. Marcus Hawley joined Zara, his expression grim. He had spent days analyzing data collected during the assault on the Outlanders' stronghold. What he found chilled him to the bone. The railgun technology used by the Outlanders bore unmistakable similarities to designs he had proposed decades ago, but with modifications far beyond anything he could have imagined. Someone had taken his work, twisted it, and turned it into a weapon of unprecedented destruction. There's no way the Outlanders developed this alone, Marcus said, pacing the room. They had help. Someone gave them access to advanced quantum engineering, material science, and energy systems. Zara nodded slowly. And whoever it is, they're not done yet. This war isn't about the Outlanders. It's about us. About humanity. Her words hung heavy in the air. If an external force was fueling the conflict, then humanity's survival depended on uncovering the truth and fast. But doing so meant venturing deeper into treacherous territory, confronting enemies both visible and hidden. Back on Earth, public opinion fractured under the strain of war. Protests erupted in major cities, with some calling for peace negotiations and others demanding retaliation. Political leaders argued over strategy, their debates broadcast across the globe. Admiral Voss faced mounting pressure from all sides, yet she remained steadfast. Humanity couldn't afford to falter, not when the stakes were so high. The final piece of the puzzle came unexpectedly. An enigmatic message arrived aboard the Eclipse, sent anonymously through a secure channel. It contained coordinates leading to a remote system on the edge of known space, a place where no fleet dared venture. The message was brief, almost cryptic. Find me if you seek answers. Voss didn't hesitate. Ordering the Aegis Dawn fleet to regroup, she set course for the designated location. Along the way, tensions ran high. Supplies dwindled, repairs delayed due to lack of materials, and morale wavered as the crew grappled with exhaustion. Yet despite the hardships, they pressed on, driven by the hope of finding answers and perhaps redemption. When they reached the coordinates, they discovered a derelict station floating amidst the wreckage of ancient ships. Its design was unfamiliar, neither human nor alien. Energy readings pulsed faintly, suggesting partial functionality. As boarding parties approached cautiously, their scanners picked up signs of life within. Inside, they found a lone figure waiting for them, an alien unlike any they had encountered before. Its form shimmered, constantly shifting between states of solidity and transparency, as though it existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. When it spoke, its voice resonated in their minds rather than their ears. "I am the architect," it declared, its tone calm yet commanding. "You seek understanding. I offer it, but beware. Knowledge comes at a price." Zara stepped forward, her hand resting on the hilt of her sidearm. "Who are you? Why are you doing this?" The architect regarded her with an unreadable gaze. "I am a creator, a builder of possibilities. Centuries ago, I seeded civilizations across the stars, nurturing them until they matured. Humanity was one such seed. But your growth has been unpredictable, chaotic." Marcus frowned, piecing together fragments of the creature's speech. "You gave the Outlanders their technology. You manipulated us into war." The architect nodded. "Conflict drives evolution. Through struggle, species adapt, grow stronger. Without challenge, stagnation consumes them. I merely provided the catalyst." "But why?" Zara demanded, anger rising in her chest. "Why pit us against each other? Why destroy innocent lives?" The architect tilted its head, as if considering her question. "Innocence is relative. Your kind has waged wars since time immemorial. My actions merely accelerated processes already in motion. Would you prefer ignorance? Peace built on false foundations?" Voss stepped forward, her voice firm. "Enough games. What do you want from us?" The architect's form flickered, growing dimmer. "Choice. Decide your path. Continue down this road of violence or forge a new future. Either way, My role ends here. The outcome rests with you." With that, the creature dissolved into light, leaving the station silent and empty. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, unsure how to process what they had just witnessed. Had the architect been truthful, or was this another layer of manipulation? Returning to the fleet, Zara gathered her senior officers to discuss their next move. Opinions varied widely. Some advocated striking back at the Outlanders and their allies, determined to win the war at any cost. Others called for diplomacy, arguing that unity was humanity's only chance of survival. In the end, Zara made the decision. "We fight not out of hatred, but out of necessity," she declared. "But we also reach out. We show our enemies that we're willing to talk, to find common ground. Because if we don't, the architect wins. We become exactly what it wanted us to be." Under Zara's leadership, the fleet launched a daring counteroffensive. Railguns roared to life once more, targeting strategic locations while diplomatic envoys worked tirelessly to broker ceasefires. Slowly, painfully, progress was made. Alien factions began questioning their involvement. Realizing that humanity wasn't the monolithic threat they had been led to believe, the turning point came when a rogue faction of Zetherians defected, revealing that the architect had manipulated them as well. Their testimony exposed the true architect of the war, uniting former adversaries against a common enemy. Together, humanity and its newfound allies pushed back against the forces threatening to tear the galaxy apart. In the final battle, the combined fleets clashed near the remnants of the Outlanders' stronghold. Explosions lit up the void as railguns fired relentlessly, reducing enemy ships to debris. Shields flared, weapons screamed, and sacrifices mounted, but ultimately, unity prevailed. The Outlanders fell, their stronghold reduced to rubble, their cause extinguished. As the dust settled, Zara stood on the bridge of the battered Aegis Dawn, staring out at the stars. Victory had come at great cost, but it had also brought clarity. Humanity had faced its darkest hour and emerged stronger, not because of weapons or tactics, but because of resilience, ingenuity, and the refusal to give up. Admiral Voss summed it up best during a post-war address. "This war tested us in ways we never imagined. It forced us to confront our flaws, our fears, and our capacity for destruction. But it also reminded us of our strength, our courage, and our ability to rise above adversity. Let this be a lesson, not just to humanity, but to every species in the galaxy. War is a choice. So too is peace." The galaxy began to heal, though scars remained. The Outlanders' fate served as a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers of isolation and resentment. For humanity, the road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in years, it was filled with hope. As the Aegis Dawn drifted silently through space, its crew looked toward the horizon, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They knew the galaxy would always demand sacrifice, but they also knew that humanity's spirit could endure anything, even itself,